Hi everyone. So what you're going to need is a piece of notebook paper before you start this video. I'm going to do some problems with you and you need to do it on your notebook paper right along with me. And this will be turned in to me. And at the end of this video, you're going to be given 4 questions that you need to do on your own that will also be on the notebook paper. And you will turn that into the bin and I will just grade it and see how well you understand the standard, okay? So let's do a couple practice problems. So evaluating expressions, please title your paper like this with your name and the period number so I know where to put it in the grade book, and of course I can get it to you, okay? So we're going to look at this expression. And remember GEMS, we have groupings, exponents, which is also square roots, M for multiplication and also division, and S for subtraction and addition. So we need to do groupings first. We're going to start with the inner groupings. So it looks like this is the innermost grouping. So we're going to start there. And everything else I'm just going to bring down. Now I'm going to switch this to a parenthesis just because I like to write those better. Sometimes you'll see that where they'll just put multiple groups of parentheses. So another parenthesis here. Square root of 100, if you don't remember how to do this, the implied rule is a 2 here. So it says we're looking for 2 of a kind. So 100 is the same thing as 10 times 10. Since we have 2 tens, we'll pull that out. And then when we get over here, we have to be very careful. This negative is not being squared because really, negative 1 squared is the same thing as a negative 1 times 1 squared. We are only squaring this number, not this number. If we wanted the whole thing to be squared, it would have to look like negative 1 squared, and it does not. So we're going to bring the negative down, and the square root of 1 is, I'm sorry, I didn't mean square root. The power, 1 to the second power, is just 1. Okay, put my parenthesis, and I need this bracket, which again, I just made another parenthesis, okay, plus 12. All right, so after that, we're still working with this. We haven't cleaned it all up yet, so I'm just going to drop other information down. And then we have 10 minus 1, which is going to be 9, plus 12. All right, now I'm going to work with this grouping. We have 6 minus 9 divided by 9 is 1 plus 12. And then we can do this all together. So 6 take away 1 is 5, and 5 plus 12 is 17. So our final answer for that one is 17. All right, so let's go ahead and try a second one. So again, I'm looking, I have lots of groupings here, so I'm going to go to the innermost groupings, which is going to be, oops, I forgot something here. Let me write that in. It's going to be right here. And obviously you're going to need to pause the video and write things down. I just did this to save time, okay? So we're going to drop down the 8 minus and the 12 divided by. Now I'm going to do what's inside the groupings. I won't be able to clean it all up the first time around, so I'll break it into 2. So the 400, I'm trying to figure out, what times what equals 400? Remember, it has to be the same thing. So if I don't know, I'm just going to guess. Now I want you to look at this number right here, 4. I know that the square root of 4 is 2. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, so if I want it to be 400, 2 zeros, I'll just split the 0 up here and here. So 20 times 20 is 400. So that'll come out as 20. Now this, we have to be careful. Remember, drop the negative down. And we're doing 2 to the power of 5, which means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 more. Bring that down. And we have 6 times 8 times another 2 is going to be 16 times another 2 will be 32. So this is 32. And I'm just writing everything else down. Now, I know that, okay, I have to finish up what is in the inner groupings. So we have 8 minus 12 divided by, and 20 minus 32 will give us a negative 12 plus 11. So I dropped the parentheses off because I was done with everything inside there. So now I'm just working with this grouping, and we have 8 minus 12 divided by negative 12 is going to give us a negative 1. Now I want you to notice something here. I dropped down the 8, I dropped down the negative. This negative 1 has nothing to do with the subtraction sign. You can't blur those together, okay? They're two different things. And then we have our plus 11. Now I want you to think about English. If I say I don't not like cookies, what does that mean? I don't not like cookies. That means I like cookies, right? Well, we don't like double negatives inside English. Well, we also don't like double negatives in math. So this actually means it's not a negative. So that is the same thing as 8 plus 1 plus 11. So here we have 9 plus 11 is 20. Okay. Make sure you are skipping lines and making this neat so that I can read it all, okay? All right, so in this case, when we evaluate these expressions, we have to substitute in first. So I have an expression, and then I have what the variables mean. So we're going to go ahead and just substitute in. Now keep in mind, these are straight lines, so that's absolute value. That's not the same as parentheses, but it is still a grouping. So I'm just going to rewrite it. 3, absolute value, let's see, B is a negative 6, minus, and C is 2, plus A is a negative 3. Now I'm going to keep this in parentheses because the whole negative 3 is being cubed. So it's not just the 3 that's being cubed because A equaled negative 3. All right, I'm going to start out with my groupings. So I'm going to do what is inside here. So that will be 3 absolute value, negative 6. So I'm going to break this up. The 2 is being squared, the negative is not, so I'll bring the negative down, and 2 to the second power is 4, plus, and I can actually do this at the same time because it's not connected. So let's go ahead and do that to save a little bit of room on our paper. So over here I'm going to write, we have negative 3 to the third power, which means negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Times a negative 3 is going to give us negative 27. We had an odd number of negatives, and so it's going to turn out to be a negative. So I'm going to write that as a negative 27. Okay, now finishing up this part over here, we have 3, and this is going to be a negative 6 plus a negative 4 is going to be negative 10 plus a negative 27. And I could have written this just as minus 27. It's okay, whichever one you want to do. So, still working with this grouping here. I have to pull it out now of the absolute value sign. Remember, that's how far away it is from 0. So that's going to be 3 times 10 plus a negative 27. So 3 times 10 is 30 plus a negative 27. I have more positives than I have negatives, and that is 3 more positives, so my end answer is 3. All right, if this is going too fast, remember to pause the video, stop, take it all in before you do the next one, and make sure you're walking through them to make sure you understand these, okay? So go ahead and write this one down. This time we're going to fill in the values for K, M, and N. So we have 2. M we're going to replace with negative 7, minus N is going to be a 4, plus K is a negative 2, and I'm going to put that in parentheses to remind myself that the whole thing in this case is going to be to the third power. All right. So we have 2. I'm going to do what is in my groupings here first. So I have -7 minus 4 times 4 is 16, plus I'm going to also do this at the same time since they're not connected. And we have -2 times -2 times -2. So -2 times -2 is 4 times -2, and that will be a -8. So that's -8. Okay, finishing up with our grouping here. And we have 2 and -7 and -16 is -23, plus we have our -8. So I'm going to take this out of the absolute value sign, and that will be 2 times 23 plus our -8. Multiply these together, and we have 46 plus a -8. We have more positives than we have negatives. So that will end up leaving us with 38. Okay? All right. Now let's take a look at these. So we are taking square roots and cube roots. So remember, a square root has an implied 2 right here. We don't have to write it, because remember I told you to remember the game Go Fish. It wouldn't be much of a game if you were having pairs of one of a kind. So we're never going to do one of a kind. This is the one time in math that I can think of that we imply the 2. So we're looking for 2 of a kind. Now this can look really confusing, but we can write it a different way to make it less confusing. The 4 and also the 25 is under the square root sign or the radical sign. So I'm going to put 4 under its own radical sign and 25 under its own radical sign. Now I'm just going to say, what is the square root of 4? Well, 2 times 2 is 4, and the square root of 25 is 5. And that's our end answer, is 2 over 5. We're going to leave things in fractions, okay? Again, here, let's make it easier for ourselves. So we will put 16 under its own radical sign and 49 under its own radical sign. As long as they're still under a radical sign, we've got the same thing. So the square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of 49 is 7. And that has to remain as a fraction. Okay, now here we have a cube root. So that means we are taking 3 of a kind. So let's go ahead and write our 216 over here, because a lot of us, most of us, we don't know what that is intuitively. So we're going to have to do some work. We're trying to find 3 of a kind. So 3 things, same number, multiplied together 3 times, it will give us 216. So I see that that is an even number. So I'm just going to go ahead and start there. I'm going to cut it into half. So that will be 108. So 2 times 108. 2's already a prime factor, so we'll leave that be. We're going to work with 108. And I see once again that that is an even number, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut it in half. So that will be 54. Now, that's an even number. I can cut it in half, or I might also see that that is the same as 9 times 6. So it doesn't matter. At the end, we're going to get the same thing. I'm looking for 3 of a kind. So I have a 2 and a 2. I have a 9 and a 6. So I don't have 3 2's. I only have 2 of them. So remember, we already have these 2's. We're going to keep those 2's, but we can keep breaking these numbers up. So 9 is going to be 3 times 3. That's now a prime factor, so I'm going to leave those as 3. And 6 is 2 times 3. So I have those broken into my prime factors. Now what I notice is I have a 2 here, a 2 here, and a 2 here. So I have 3 2's. So I'm going to pull out 3 2's, and that gets to be pulled out as 1, 2. When we think about fish, when we lay them down, we have one pair, or one, in this case, one group of 3s. And I noticed that I also have 3, 3. So 3, 3, and 3. So I'm going to pull that out also, and I'm going to multiply these together and get 6. So the answer here is 6. Now what that tells me is, had I done this, let's do this again, so 216, I could divide this by 6. And 216 divided by 6, let's see, 6 goes into 21 3 times, 18, 19, 20, 21, so that leaves 36 left, and it'll go into 36 6 times. And I know that 36 could be broken up into 6 and 6. So had we seen that a 6 went into 216, we would have gotten to our answer quicker. It doesn't matter, we'd get the same answer. So you can take the scenic route if you need to, okay? And the last one. So again, 64, we are taking the cube root. So let's go ahead and write 64 over here. So cube root, we can't think, oh, 8 times 8 is 64, because we don't want the square root, cube root, 3 of a kind. So I am going to start, I see that 8 and 8 is 64, so I'm going to go ahead and start there. Well, I know 8 can be broken up into 4 times 2. 2 is already a prime factor, so I'll leave the 2, but the 4 can be broken up into 2 times 2. And look at that, we found 3 2's, didn't we? So we were going to go ahead and pull that out. So that will equal 2, but we haven't done it to this one. But now we know that 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, so I can just go ahead and say 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, and we have found another group of 3 2's. So I'm going to pull that out, and we multiply these together, and that equals 4, and that will be our final answer. So again, we took the scenic route here. Let's see. Had we noticed that a 4 went into this, we could have said 64 divided by 4 is 124 here, so that's 16. And 16 could be divided into 4 and 4, and we would have gotten there quicker. Again, it doesn't matter if you take the scenic route or not, because we ended up with 4 either way, okay? All right, now what you need to do on your paper, if you're not to the end of the paper, if you want to attach another sheet, do some kind of nice squiggly line or something, and these are going to be the 4 questions that you do on your own to show me that you understand this content, okay? So go ahead, write those down, solve those on your own, and then you'll turn in all of your work plus the answers to these, and I will look it over, and I will be checking it for accuracy, and I'll see how well you understand this content, okay? Good luck, everybody.